On YouTube, we are here for the Week 10 XFL preview. This is a really exciting week, actually. This is a week where all four games mean something for at least one of the teams playing. Um, um, so definitely exciting week. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, comment down below. What you think about prediction this week? If you want to sponsor my emails in there. And we're gonna get into it's a lot to get into this week, so we're gonna get into all of it. Let's take a quick look at the standing. Here. Okay. So these are the standings. So DC 8-1. They got the playoff spot clinched. They got the home. They're hosting the XFL North Championship game on Sunday at 3 p.m. We got that announced. We don't know who they're playing. Now, Seattle and St. Louis are tied. Right now, St. Louis is a tiebreaker because they have a better division record. However, they've also played one more division game than the Sea Dragons, who will be playing the Vegas Vipers, who are 2-7. So, assuming a lot has to happen, they have to win. But assuming the Dragons win and St. Louis wins, they would have the same division record. We're going to go over tiebreakers in a second because it also applies for the South as well. Vipers at 2-7. They've been out of it for a while. XFL South. Houston Roughnecks. They have clinched playoff spot. They have clinched hosting the XFL South Championship game, and that'll be Sunday, April 29th at 7 p.m. We also have that announced. Now, Arlington Renegades are 4-5, and the San Antonio Brahmas are 3-6. My understanding, I'd have to double check. Yes, okay. So this is a little bit more complicated, or a little simpler. If the Renegades win, it's over. Done. They clinch the playoff spot. If San Antonio wins, doesn't matter what San Antonio does. If San Antonio wins and Arlington loses against them, this tiebreaker nonsense. And again, it gets complicated. Guardians are at 1-8. So the head-to-head matchups. So let's go for the XFL North. Seattle and St. Louis split this season series. That's done. So they're head-to-head. They're even. They both, and that also, if assuming, if San Antonio and Dallas had the same record, they also split the season series. So tiebreaker 1 is done. Best win-loss percentage of division games. Again, assuming both the Seattle and St. Louis, assuming Seattle wins, and assuming that San Antonio wins, Arlington loses, which isn't impossible, then they would have the same of that. Strength of victory in all games, combined record of opponents and wins. Now that I can't swear to for the San Antonio Dallas tiebreaker. What I can say is that for San Antonio to win, they'd have to beat DC, which would be a huge boost to that. It would be a huge boost to them in that tiebreaker. I'm not sure where it would go. I think it might go to 4. I'd have to dive into that a little more. And the best combined ranking when division teams in points scored and points allowed in all games. So we're looking at prop for Seattle and St. Louis. They'll have opponents have the same win-loss records because they'll have beaten all the same teams, and they'll have both lost to DC twice, and they'll have both lost to each other once, who will have the same record. So that's where it goes. So that's what we're looking at. It's a little bit complicated, so I'm gonna stop sharing this. So that's where the standings are at. And I found this. This is from @MarkCast. I think that's his handle on Twitter. No, let's see where I can find it. Okay. So this is from, let's see what his handle is. Yep, @the_MarkCast. Great spring football guy. Be sure to give him a follow. St. Louis wins, Seattle loses. St. Louis in the playoffs, because then they wouldn't have the same record. If St. Louis loses and Seattle wins, Seattle is in the playoffs. St. Louis loses and Seattle wins. Seattle or St. Louis losing, Seattle lose. St. Louis in the playoffs. Because they would have a better divisional record. Because if Seattle loses to Vegas, then they'd have a worse divisional record. So if they both win, St. Louis needs to score 19 more points versus Orlando than Seattle against Vegas. And St. Louis must still think first in total points against. I don't see how they would lose the points against battle because they're gonna win that. They would have a better ranking of that, but I don't really see because so I don't really get why the points scored matters at all. Actually, but I trust them because their points allowed versus the division. Seattle's only going to get worse in that number because they're playing division teams, so they're only going to allow more points in the division. So St. Louis is going to hold on to that, so they'd be winning that regardless. Oh, and St. Louis was saying first in total points against. Oh, hold on. This is going to get complicated. All right. So the way this tiebreaker works is really strange. Um, and let's see if I can get this stat. It's not a great stat, and I wish they had it. Scoring. So, okay. So let's do this then. All right. So it basically means where you rank a division in points scored and points against. So I think what would have that has to happen. What has to happen is so let's go. So let's go to defense. Let's see if this helps us. Scoring. Nope, not literally the only stat I don't need. That's cool. So I don't really have the stat, but basically St. Louis is a good game defensively and on offense. Really complicated. Um, Simplest thing is for St. Louis, both teams have to win. It really comes down to that. They both have to win. So let's go to the week 10 schedule. Yikes. Orlando at St. Louis. That's at home. That's at noon, which is advantage for Seattle. Because they can know how many points they have to score. So Seattle has to beat their opponent by 19 more points. So if St. Louis only wins by 3 points, then Seattle can play conservative and just get a win, and they could be good. And their defense, if they St. Louis can have a bad, if St. Louis is a bad game, Seattle can just, as long as they win, can just kind of not rest, but be a little more comfortable with that. So that's big. DC at San Antonio, that's a big game. So to have a chance, San Antonio needs to win. I haven't seen the depth chart or the injury report, excuse me, or both, I guess, for lack of that. For that matter. So it gets a little but DC has nothing to play for. If I'm DC, I'm not letting Jordan. I'm not even letting Derek King play that much, to be honest. I'm getting the third string. I know they had a third string. They have Montez. I bet Steven Monetz gets some run. So I think San Antonio has a shot, and that's at home. They got a shot. Houston at Arlington. Now this is a tougher one because Houston's not playing super well. That's the one thing. I mean, I think they'll rest starters too and all, but I think they've left. The DC's been playing so well all year. I think they can just kind of. They'll probably get maybe a snap or two, but like DC can kind of just coast. Whereas I think Houston needs to play well, needs to feel like they're playing well going to the playoffs. I imagine they want to get some rhythm going. And Arlington, but I mean, this game could not matter at all. I guess that's the only thing. If San Antonio doesn't take care of business, which is I'm skeptical, but if it was in DC, I wouldn't give San Antonio a chance, but I give them a chance at home. Same thing with Arlington. With Houston with nothing to play for, could be interesting. And then Vegas at Seattle. Vegas doesn't have a ton to play for yet, but playing hard all year. They've had some good stuff. Here we the playoff games next weekend. So lots to go over. All right. So let's go. This is the lines from Thursday. Orlando at St. Louis. I'm picking St. Louis to win. I'm picking Orlando to cover, which is risky. I'm not feeling great about that. I think at home, St. Louis could score about 1,000 points. 9.5 is just a lot. I bet that line gets even bigger too. Um, Again, this could be one of those times where I'm like, oh, the Guardians played well last week. They could do it again. But I'm kind of thinking the Guardians can play well. Um, and it's last game of the season. I think the smart bet is St. Louis, but I'm also a Dragons fan, so I kind of don't want this to happen. So I'm biased, but wouldn't shock me. It's kind of just a fun pick, to be honest. I might even switch this before the games. But if that St. Louis line gets over 10, I'm definitely staying away. I think the Orlando's played hard and competitive. They've beaten good teams. St. Louis's mental state, I think, will be fine. AJ McCarron's the leader in a bet, but we'll see. DC at San Antonio. Again, it's going to be the question. I haven't seen the depth charts yet, and haven't heard much they're going to play guys yet. So that's a lot of this. I'm hedging my bet that they're not going to play a ton of guys. I think Vegas has that feeling too because they're only saying they're going to win by 3. I think if this was a normal, if they had a feeling they were going to play full strength, I think this line could get bigger too because people just see, oh, 8-1 versus 3-6. And their bettors aren't that smart always in this stuff and the odds makers. So could be an easy. I think it could be good. I'm just kind of having fun with this. My picks are kind of in the toilet this year. Houston, Arlington. I think Arlington won. I think if they're going to win, they're going to cover that. They're not going to win by 1 point. I think they're going to win. I think they have a lot more to play for, even as I say that they might not. I feel pretty good about that. And then Seattle will win. I don't feel great about them covering, to be honest, but I think they definitely. I think they could have. That's the thing about St. Louis. St. Louis might just be like, we're going to put 150 points on the board, which could also happen because they can't be conservative. They have to. They have to win that game by a lot. So maybe that's not a smart pick. I think if St. Louis just had to win, if St. Louis was playing this game second and they just had to win the game, I would pick Orlando to cover. But I'm switching that because I think they're going to be, anytime it's close, like last second of the game, they're on the 20-yard line, they're kicking a field goal or they're going for a touchdown or they're, those plays that maybe you kind of take your foot off the gas, they're not going to do that at all because they can't afford to because they need to win by a lot to give themselves a chance. So that's a smarter pick. It's still a little bit high. If it gets much higher than that, I don't know. But a 9.5, I'd probably have to take them to cover that. And Seattle, that's going to be depend on that first game, but I think St. Louis is going to win. I think St. Seattle's going to have to win. I think they're good. Ben DiNucci's not just going to win by 3 points. So they're my picks. Thanks for watching. Hopefully a good weekend of games. Seattle wins. I might come on here right after, but we'll see. Thanks for watching.